Hey everybody, what's up? My name is John Hammond. I wanted to see if I could get through like the intro to this video without cheesing, without grinning from ear to ear, because I'm happy. I'm pretty pleased. So for those of you that, if you aren't tracking, if you aren't getting maybe cyber stalking me on social media, over the past weekend, I was taking my OSED exam. So OSED is the Offensive Security Exploit Developer, and that's a certification exam that would follow the Windows User Mode Exploit Developer course that Offensive Security puts out. So a little bit of background, a little bit of backdrop before I kind of dive into this video. Although this video is going to be a review of that course, Windows User Mode, Exploit Developer, and OSED, I guess OSED, however you want to call it, but Offensive Security's Exploit Developer exam, the certification, training, preparation, etc. Just my perspective. So first, let me kind of tell the story. If you aren't familiar with the OSED course, if you aren't familiar with WUMED, Windows User Mode Exploit Developer, it is a course in binary exploitation and reverse engineering. So this kind of follows off the tails of OSCP, or the Offensive Security Certified Professional, where in that course, in kind of that foundational fundamental level OSCP, you as the student would work through a buffer overflow exercise. Just a classic vanilla kind of stack-based buffer overflow, but OSED takes that one step further. And not just one step further, but a lot of steps further. In that, okay, now that you're working following from a buffer overflow, you'll be looking with SEH exploits, or the structured exception handler. You're going to be working with egg hunters. You're going to be working with shellcode or custom shellcode, or shellcode that you might write yourself. And then DEP, or the data execution prevention, DEP security mitigation, you'll be trying to bypass that so you can still execute your shellcode off the stack. You'll be bypassing ASLR, or the address space layout randomization, another security mitigation. It's super cool. It's a lot of in the weeds technical stuff, because you're literally looking through assembly opcodes, or writing assembly opcodes, or developing a ROP chain, return oriented programming, tons and tons of stuff. This course, the EXP 301, or the Windows User Mode Exploit Developer course, that came from a blog post that Offensive Security published back in August of 2020. They originally wrote that their old course, OSCE, that came from Cracking the Perimeter, or CTP, was going to be retired. And I think the community was pretty happy to hear this, because that course was old and dated. It was still using Backtrack Linux and was working through Immunity Debugger for teaching some older techniques. So it was ready for a welcome revamp. So when Offensive Security had announced that they were retiring that course, they also said they were going to be releasing two new courses. One of which was the Offensive Security Experience Penetration Tester, or OSEP, and I have a video on that previously on my channel. And this course that I'm talking about right now, the Windows User Mode Exploit Developer, or OSED. Now, I was pretty excited about this news, because with that, Offensive Security had said the OSCE name for Certified Expert was now going to sort of be transformed and have a special designation as the OSCE 3. If a student were to hold 3 certifications between the Offensive Security Experience Penetration Tester, OSEP, Exploit Developer, OSED, and OSWE, or their Advanced Web Attacks and Exploitation Certification and Training, then they would automatically be designated as OSCE 3. And that you are really an offensive security certified expert and can certainly crack the perimeter between your knowledge of web application security, Active Directory and Windows domain stuff, as well as Windows exploits and reverse engineering, etc. So I was pretty excited about this. You guys know me, for one thing. I love offensive security. I love their training. I love that it's a challenge. I love that it's just something to prove yourself and to learn from. And I was super stinking excited. If you check out the other video that I talk about OSEP, or the Experience Penetration Tester, I'm talking about how I just dive right into the new course as soon as it is released. And this course, OSED, the Exploit Developer, is absolutely no different. Okay, now that I have the 5 minutes of background explanation out of the way, I kind of want to break down what I want to do in this video. So first I want to offer a timeline as to how I was pursuing this course, then the exam, right? I'll talk about how I prepared, how I trained, how I studied, kind of my workflow. I'll talk about the exam as much as I can, being super vague, and I'll talk about the reporting process that's necessary after the exam, and I'll try and answer questions that I had asked for before recording this to try and make sure I get some of the points that I know you as the audience might want to listen in and kind of get the perspective. I will try to include timestamps in the description so you can kind of click into what parts of the video that you would like to check out. But without further ado, I guess I'll get started on the timeline, how this process looked for my OSED review. So as I mentioned, I was super duper excited when this course dropped. I think I originally got the email back on like January 27th of this year, and I was stoked. So you know me, kind of have a cannonball mentality for taking certs and training. So I signed up right away. Like the very same day, as soon as it was available, I wanted to make sure that I could book my spot and get started with the labs, get started with the course and the material as quickly as I could. So the very same day, I signed up, January 27th, and it lets me know, hey, Saturday, March 6th is when I was going to get my hands on the material and I could get started. When March 6th finally rolled around, I got started right away scheduling my exam. Again, I just wanted to speed run. I kind of had this mentality like, hey, let's crank out as quickly as we can. Let's hold ourselves to it. Let's set deadlines so I don't put this off or procrastinate. I just wanted to keep moving. So I scheduled my exam for Saturday, June 12th. So this past weekend, I was working through the exam, and it started at 3 a.m. So a little bit of a long haul. I was working kind of with my sleep schedule to see what could I do to crank through this thing. And I finally went ahead and submitted my exam report, and I got the classic kind of automated solution, automated response like, hey, we received your exam documentation. Please wait 10 business days or so. Just today, this morning, at the time recording on Wednesday, I get the notification, I get the email, hey John, we're happy to inform you you've successfully completed this course and you've earned your Offensive Security Exploit Developer certification. I did it. I was super happy. I got the fancy badge, you know, how they send you like Acclaim, or I guess it's Credly now or whatever. They'll give you a nice little decal or picture you can scream about and share it on social media, and I obviously did that. Hey, let me say that I was super worried and nervous and scared for this test. If anyone actually tuned into the Offensive Security webinar that I did just the day before I got started, I'm telling the individuals and I'm telling the audience, like, look, I don't know how this is going to go. At that point, I hadn't finished the challenges, like the preparatory lab exercises before you start to take the exam. I only ended up finishing one of them. And I said straight out, and I will always say, look, I'm not all that good at reverse engineering. Binary exploitation is by no means my strong suit. You've seen it in videos. I say it all the time.
So I think you're going through EXP 301. Is that right?
Yes.
How's that going for you?
Oh man, I have had a lot of thoughts in my mind about how this is going to shake out. My exam for OSED in the exploit development course starts tomorrow.
Oh, what are you doing here then?
Yeah, don't tell anyone. Right? I am really nervous. I'm really anxious, like more so than I ever have been before, because I know, and I'll be the first to admit, I'm not sharp on reverse engineering or binary exploitation. So normally I pour and invest a lot of time in studying. I sort of showcased my workflow before in other YouTube videos, but I'll work through all the course videos, rename them so that they're in like a chronological order, and I can index them if I ever need them again. And I'll take the course book and I'll practically rewrite it. I'll write my own copy just by going through the videos. That gives me the opportunity to properly get all the source code, to kind of understand what went where and how. And it's extremely time consuming, because then I'll be thinking, great, I have plowed through the course but now I need to invest the time in preparation and tooling. Like I've got some challenges in the lab environment that I need to get through, and it would be great if I could get myself a little sharper on that and maybe get some tools, utilities spun up with automation to make my life easier. That is another time sink. I don't think I've been able to do that the way that I normally would for OSED. So I'm a little scared.
Well, best of luck tomorrow. Looking forward to hearing how it goes for you.
Thanks so much. Oh, I guess I pulled it out. I guess I was mentioning how I needed to invest more time into it. So maybe that night, on Friday, I just crammed even more than I could. I tweeted about it. There was a tweet that I sent out that was like, hey, it's 3:00 in the morning the day before, and I had a lot of work due that week for my day job. I said, hey, it's time to hack. And then my boss, like for my job, my boss sent me a text. It's like, I don't know if that's work-life balance. So, Kyle, if you happen to see this, I know, dude. Thanks. Just after I got the congratulations email for OSED, I got another email that was just incredible and lovely and fantastic and so sweet from the CEO at Offensive Security. Thank you. I know a few of you offensive security folks, some of you OffSec fellows tend to tune in and watch some of these videos. So if you're listening in, hey, thanks guys. Thank you so much. I guess, yeah. I mean, between getting OSWE some time ago and OSEP that I have the video out previously, and now this OSED, I guess that makes the trio, and I'm minted as OSCE, the Offensive Security Certified Expert, the 3 subscript. So thanks so much. I screamed about it. I shared about it. I put this out on the socials, and that seemed to be pretty well received on Twitter and LinkedIn. So thank you again and again and again. Thanks, guys. I just super appreciate the love. Okay, now that we are over 10 minutes in a review video and I haven't done any reviewing, let's talk about this thing. So the course, the curriculum, the lab, the guidebook, the PDF, the videos, it is everything that you need to pass the exam, in my opinion. I don't think that it spent as much time as it could have, specifically in reverse engineering, because reverse engineering is extremely slow and it's tedious and it is time consuming. So that on its own is going to suck up and take a lot of time. There's kind of one section dedicated to it that it goes throughout the course, but that's the most that you'll see, at least for the actual like engrossing definition of what you're going to be doing for reverse engineering. When it gets to the later modules that do things with your reverse engineering skills, because it has to talk about the exploitation process, it will sort of speed run to the point that you would have figured out had you done reverse engineering, but it takes so much time because reverse engineering is a time consuming process, because it's a time sink on its own. It's not something that it is able to go through due to the nature of the course of its own. But I think it could have some more love, because I, for one, still felt like in a frenzy when I'm opening up IDA, when I'm trying to dig through opcodes and assembly instructions and figure out what ends up going with what. And you'll parallel it with your debugger, and you'll be using WinDebug in this course. We might be used to Immunity Debugger, and I'll actually include that as kind of a snippet here. If you're a little bit more familiar with Immunity Debugger, once you end up using WinDebug, the very first time you see it, it's extremely bare bones. It's not all that intuitive, and it's not user-friendly kind of right out of the gate. I kind of dug some homework. I was doing my homework and dug around a little bit and found, you can customize workspaces as it discusses in kind of the beginning of the course, but you can set it up to look and feel a little bit more like Immunity Debugger, so you can see the memory, you can see the stack, you can see the calling queue, you can see maybe registers, of course, automatically and have it displayed alongside the instructions in the command panel. I'll showcase something that I used in this case to do that. And I guess that will lead me into more of my workflow and procedure and process. So you've heard me say it before. I take a lot of notes. I literally go through everything and just take copious amounts of notes, trying to prepare and trying to stage as much as I can. I'll try to include like mental checkpoints as to what to do in what situation if you either forget or if you just don't remember or you need another nudge or reminder. It's like, follow this process or do these things, run these commands, figure this out. That is what I would recommend some folks do. Additionally, I would recommend kind of staging and preparing your own environment, because as I mentioned, if you wanted to configure Immunity Debug, or excuse me, if you wanted to configure WinDebug to what you like, or if you know, oh, I want to have Mona to work in WinDebug, get that staged and get that ready and get that prepared so you can rapidly pull it in to the environment whenever you're in front of it. You won't have internet, right, in that exam environment, so you got to make sure all that stuff is ready on your machine and you can readily pull it down. I tend to use Updog for that, just to be able to transfer files back and forth with HTTP, and you'll see some of the syntax here that I have already ready and prepped so that, like, cool, let's get Mona, let's get this PyKD rendition, let's make sure we have Keystone, and all these other things that you might end up needing when it's exam time, when it's show time, when it's go time. And I'm sure you can see kind of in my notes here, try to prepare yourself for whatever circumstance or whatever situation you might find yourself in. Now, what I mean by that is like, okay, if you know something can be accomplished in a number of different ways, try to have already thought out the procedure for each of those different ways. Concrete example, ROP or return-oriented programming. You can use that technique to bypass STEP or the data execution prevention. You know, okay, say you could do that with Win32 API functions X, Y, and Z. Try and have it prepped for each of those situations if you know you're going to end up in that situation. Or custom shell coding, right? You know you might have to deal with some bad bytes. Try and figure out, okay, what procedures can you do, whether it's working with 2's complement or negating something to avoid null bytes on the stack, or trying to use multi-step addition or multi-step subtraction. Each of those things will be super duper handy when it comes to showtime. And on that note, actually, one thing that I would recommend, and I think I'll be able to showcase code here if it's kosher, I would try to script out or automate some simple things like pushing a string and its representation on the stack in little endian and byte order that's necessary, being cognizant of null bytes and what register I should work with, whether it's a 32-bit register or a 16-bit or the lower half with 8-bit registers to do that, or if it's finding specific and useful tiny ROP gadgets that you might get from ROP gadget, the binary, like the programming utility, or Pwn tools if you use it, or RP++, or whatever utility you use to find ROP gadgets. Try and extract a simple pop register or a simple increment or decrement gadget or a negate instruction, whatever you could track down. I will link some code below in like pastebin links or gists, I guess, on GitHub to showcase that and some utilities that I would work with and modify to be able to make my life easier in those situations. I would again recommend you do that. Actually, in that vein, if you're not in the official Offensive Security Discord server, you absolutely should be. There are incredibly smart people having incredibly smart conversations about what more you can be doing. Some folks have graciously shared some fantastic tools and tooling. I think Epi, forgive me if I'm butchering your name, EPI, he's been a fantastic fellow, showcasing some great stuff. So definitely go take a look at some of that you could potentially use if you're interested in this. When it comes to exam time, you're totally ready, you're totally set, you got everything in the mix. In my opinion, I think that there were some curveballs or something that kind of threw me for a loop. I don't know if you will have the same reaction. I don't know if you'll have the same set of challenges, of problems, of tasks. I don't know if other people have had that same thought when they were approaching the exam. There were a couple things that I were expecting that were not immediately what I would have expected. I think going through this process, taking these in-depth notes, preparing yourself for whatever situation you might find yourself in, and you're still hit with something that you didn't expect, at that point, you're strong enough to be able to do that critical thinking, to have the innovation to think of like, oh, actually, maybe I could take a different approach and it could work. And then try it. Actually try it. Like, try everything that you think of. You've got a lot of time. 48 hours might seem like a time crunch. And if you're doing some reverse engineering and that's something you can pour yourself into, you still have a lot of time. Push through it. Crank through it. Try everything. And you might start to see, oh, that thread that you're pulling on, that could really work. That idea has some ground and some legs to it. If you find yourself being thrown a curveball, think critically, and you'll still be able to piece things together. Yeah, obscure, vague. I will showcase a snippet of my exam report here, or just how I really built it and put it together. This is the first time I wrote my exam report in Obsidian, which is the same program and utility that I took all these notes in. That lets me work in Markdown, beautifully display things, etc. And I'm using the NoRaj template to convert Markdown into LaTeX that can be transformed into a PDF, which I could very easily submit. I've showcased that before in my taking notes for OSCP video, and I think I display that template and everything you could use to set it up. And my report for OSED was 87 pages long. Now, that's not to say yours should be that long, or yours could be shorter, yours could be longer. I don't know. The reason that I think this is so lengthy is because of a significant amount of screenshots or code blocks and code samples. I try to showcase everything that I can. In fact, I write my report as I'm taking the exam. And I just do that in a cursory way. Okay, I'll slap down a sentence for what I'm doing or what I'm thinking or what I'm going to approach next. And it saves so much time in actually writing the report after the exam, because it's in Obsidian, I can take a screenshot and just paste it in, and that's done. And I can slap down a sentence as to what I'm thinking, what I'm doing, and then it's done. And then I can go back later, refine it if I need to, but the report is already there, because I've written out my thoughts like a walkthrough as I'm working through the tasks and the assignments. So that is my advice to you. Write your report while you're working through this. Not so much that it completely distracts you and it eats up all your time, but literally just jot down a sentence every time you do something or you're trying something new, and just oh, this worked. Oh, it didn't work. And okay, maybe I'll go refine and remove pieces that didn't work, or I spent significant amount of time on XYZ. It was a lost cause, whatever. But that's my suggestion in reporting. Hey, for the whole rest of this video, I'm going to go through your questions that you submitted either through Twitter or on Discord. I'm going to do that in a casual, just back and forth way. So forgive me. I'm just going to end up kind of letting my hair down and chilling for the rest of this video. It's not going to feel like the whatever formal or professional setting previously. It's just going to be me talking. So if that's not what you're interested in, click away. Thanks for watching. I hope this was a good video. Blah, blah, blah. Now I guess I'm going to get to the raw, core, genuine stuff. But tune in if you're still interested. Thanks. I want to take the rest of this video to answer some of your questions. I tried to tweet out and post in my Discord hey, if you guys have any questions that you'd like me to answer, I will do that in the video. I am going to screen share for this so I can kind of get my thoughts right, and it's taking me a long time to edit back and forth, and I don't want to pour more time into this. So I had tweeted out, hey, what questions would you like answered in a review video? And one was, hey, I'm currently enrolled. I got a couple questions, actually. What automation, if any, did you end up using in WinDbg or IDA? Were there challenges enough to prepare you for the exam? And if you have additional tips and tricks for finding ROP gadgets with Mona. So, yes. I mentioned the automation that I ended up using with some Python scripts that I had pre-prepared. I kind of used that to work in tandem with the exploits that I would end up writing. I didn't do a whole lot of scripting for WinDebug. I wanted to do things with PyKD. I wanted to like automate fuzzing or automate the reverse engineering process because reverse engineering was just so daunting to me in my mind. And I never ended up getting anywhere with that. I don't know if that's something that you would be interested in, but you're more than welcome to go for it. I think it would be a great idea. But if you end up going through reverse engineering, you just gotta drone through IDA. And we're working with IDA free, so you can't use like their Python plugins, extensions to do things with IDA. You just gotta stare at it and follow through and take notes as to what brought you to what block. Try and check out the arguments that go through it as you step through it in WinDebug. That's really the best you can do. I'm sorry. Were the challenges enough to prepare you for the exam? Granted, full disclosure, I only completed one of the challenges. One of the challenges was fantastic and exceptional and great for preparing me for the exam, and that's the one that I ended up doing. The others, I banged my head against the wall repeatedly and still kind of came up empty-handed. Not to deter you, try the challenges, do the challenges if you can. I'll admit, some things stumped me, but it's not going to be the end-all be-all when it comes to showtime for the exam. If you have any additional tips or tricks for finding ROP gadgets with Mona, if you end up using Mona to find ROP gadgets, more power to you. Truthfully, I stuck with RP++, and again, I would use kind of a Python script to get a starting point for ROP gadgets that I knew would be handy because they're simple, and you'll see that in the code that I share, but I don't consider that the end-all be-all. That is a starting point. That's a baseline. That's a foundation. You still need to drag yourself through the entire output of the ROP gadgets that you find and try to see what could I use to carry the stack pointer value? What can I use to keep track of ESP while I'm doing all this voodoo magic? What could I do to juggle registers and work with values that I know I need to push on the stack that I can control to take care of my placeholder or my dummy frame to call it a Win32 API function? You have to drag yourself through the ROP output and work with it. One thing that I would do is I would actually just have it all in Sublime Text, and I would remove the things that I knew would be useless for me, like gadgets that included a jump instruction or a leave would actually get annoying. The leave instruction would get annoying. Same thing that would use a call instruction. I'd try to remove those so they're out of my mind. And then I would try to hunt for the things that would use registers specifically that I needed to work with. So I would use like regular expressions, find and replace, just in my text editor to find the gadgets that had that and match that criteria. And then I'd move those into a different pane or a different window in the text editor so I could analyze and look through each of those options and try to see what would be the best, what would have the least side effects, or what would have any other extra damage that I could still take care of after the fact. Yeah, that's that. Here we go. We'll see what the other questions are. During your coursework, was there any instruction application on advanced networking concepts or skills, and is it worthwhile to get comfortable with the Linux Arch distribution? No, truthfully, in offensive security exploit developer, there's not going to get into some networking concepts, and you won't need to use Arch Linux. You could use Kali. I used Ubuntu. Any Linux you want to use, you use. How is the challenge in comparison to the other courses? Knowledge gained from the process is equal to or not equal to the other courses. What's next? How's life? Congrats on the cert. Thanks so much, Elias. I super appreciate it. How is the challenge in comparison with the other courses? So you've heard me probably say before, I still, actually, this gives me a run for my money now. I used to say OSWE, the web exploitation course, was the hardest one for me because it was like finding a needle in a haystack. It's a white box analysis test where the source code is all given to you for the applications that you're trying to exploit and take advantage of, but there's just so much code. It was like finding a needle in a haystack. That took up a lot of time because it was reverse engineering on its own, naturally. And it just changed the game. It changed my mindset because it's normally for all the other offensive security courses, it's a black box test. You're just beating stuff up. The white box test for OSWE, you've got everything laid out in front of you, just a matter of finding it. For OSED, if I were to say OSWE was finding a needle in a haystack, OSED and the exploit developer was trying to thread the needle because it was like, oh, I know that there is a solution here. I know that there's something that I can do. It's just a matter of me carving and trying to pry and dig it out. And it was grueling. There were a lot. So other advice, take breaks, step away from your computer. Like at least if you've been going for like 4 hours or 5 hours straight, stand up, dude. Walk in a circle if you have to. Just do something to like mentally reset. Because in my opinion, you start to have your eyes glaze over. It's like, I'm trying to figure out the solution here. And it's like one puzzle piece after the next. That was difficult for me. So in the moment, I'd have to say that OSED was harder than what I would think OSWE was. I don't know if my opinion on that will change, but I use this analogy sometimes where I say it's like putting my head through fan blades because it's like, oh my, this is rough. This is hard. I got that feeling in the lowest low of my exam. I'm sure you guys all have that same feeling. Like when you're taking a course, when you're taking a test, there will be a point that you're like, I've given everything. Just keep going. Just keep turning the crank. Yeah. Sorry, I hope you guys don't mind this like casual after the fact, just screen share sort of thing. Is the Pentest Plus worth it, even though someone already has EJPT, or just jump right to OSCP? That's your decision. That is totally 1,000% your call. If you have a certification in mind that you know that you want, go for that certification. Because you know that that is your crown jewel. That's your priority. That's your number one. Go for that certification. Don't feel like you need to keep putting these intermediary steps in between each one if you know that you want some milestone out in the distance. That course or that certification or that training, OSCP, as you mentioned, it will prepare you. Like the course itself prepares you for the course's certification and capstone exam. So don't hold yourself back or try to put more stumbling blocks in your place. If you know that this is something that you want, go after that. Go after that one. Go after what you want. How approachable is this for someone with moderate reverse engineering experience? How approachable is it for someone with moderate binary exploitation experience? Yes, is my answer to that. I've said that, hey, I don't consider myself an expert or a guru, or I don't think I'm good at reverse engineering or binary exploitation. But I'm familiar with it, right? Like I took OSCE. I've done through a couple capture the flag challenges where I'm doing reverse engineering or binary exploitation. I think it's doable. Even if you aren't at moderate experience level, even if you're like totally new, the course does bring you through it. It does showcase from the baby steps that you had in the buffer overflow of OSCP all the way to your format string, bypass ASLR, still bypass DEP, custom shellcode, whatever you want. It gets you there. So if you're moderate in experience, then you've already got solid footing. So it is approachable, and I wouldn't be scared of it. Again, with all the mentality like, yes, go after the things that you want, speed run and crank and cruise through it because you want to keep yourself studying and growing and learning. And that's why I have that cannonball mentality for search and training. And maybe that's a double-edged sword. Maybe that's to a fault when I get scared, when I get nervous. But if you don't throw yourself at it, then you're never going to know what it is. The reason that I'm so totally unabashedly comfortable with signing up for the exam right away is because if I fail, I don't care. Like, so what? Now I can take it again. And I've learned what I need to improve and what I need to practice and what I need to get sharper on. So it's like, I'm totally comfortable with the failure because then it just points me in the right direction and course corrects me to do better the next time. So I know some folks might not be in the situation where they can do that. Just, retake it, just do it again. But I really think you should. Don't be scared. And if you're worried about if it's being approachable or not, it doesn't matter. You'll pick it up. And if you are a little bit experienced with it already, then you're in a good spot. And now let's take a look at some of the Discord questions. Prior to paying for the course, what are areas that we should study or focus on to prepare better or the labs of the offensive security material? So one thing that I think is actually super important and is going to be necessary more and more and it's included in the prerequisites or like the suggested things for the course, is some familiarity with the assembly language or instructions like push and pop and how the stack works, or the order that you might end up calling things, like calling conventions, right? How you would display or lay things out in memory if you end up or you invoke a function, etc. Basically just the gist of what registers are, what registers you could use, how you can manipulate them and how you can work with them, what the bytes are, NOP sleds, obviously, etc. If you are not familiar with that, I think it's SecurityTube, or I guess like Pentester Academy now. They had one that's like Introduction to x86 Assembly and stuff like that, that will help offer a primer for that sort of thing. But when you get into shell coding, when you get into custom shell coding, or when you're doing just stuff with ROP, it's totally necessary to just have a better handle on what all those gadgets, instructions, what all those opcodes really do. So being familiar with assembly is certainly something that I would recommend getting familiar with. How in depth are the topics regarding writing custom shellcode, and what do they entail? So the custom shellcoding section is super cool, in my opinion. You do end up just staging a reverse shell setup between like the WS2_32 DLL, so you can call in functions like WSA socket, like connect and setup, and then end up invoking a command prompt and sending that back to yourself. And then it's like figuring out how to make that position independent shellcode. Like it doesn't matter where it gets end up being loaded in or worked with, and it's null byte free, or it's avoiding bad characters. And you use some super cool procedures to be able to hunt down and find functions that you need in these libraries that you might end up working with. I think that gets in depth enough that you've got the prowess to call whatever function or do whatever you want in Windows shellcoding. It's just kind of a matter of putting the puzzle pieces together. That's what that entails, and that's how in-depth it gets. If you want to take a look more, I would really recommend checking out the syllabus or just getting started with the course. I had never seen that depth and coverage for teaching shellcoding or custom shellcoding before. And that was super cool because like before I took this course, before I got started with this, the whole idea of writing your own shellcode sounded so advanced. You know, it sounded like the dark arts. It sounded like black magic. It's like, whoa, you got to be uber elite to write shellcode. But I think like, hey, that gave me enough of a solid footing that I could tinker with this. I could play with this. I could do this more. And I want to now. So maybe that is a fine takeaway. But yeah, take a look. Take a look at the course syllabus and maybe start to play with it. You're on your own. Were there any exploits you had to create that were for well-known vulnerabilities, or were they mostly not very well-known, things that you had to figure out yourself? They will be things that you need to figure out yourself. You're not going to be pulling an off-the-shelf exploit script for what you end up working with. It's stuff that you got to build. It's not something you can just kind of rip off from ExploitDB or find online. What are some recommendations for practicing? Anything on Hack the Box or TryHackMe that would be beneficial, like there is for OSCP? Yeah. Actually, definitely. In my OSCE video back in the olden cracking the perimeter days, I mentioned VulnServer. Like, I think it's Stephen Bradshaw, and if you go to his GitHub, he hosts VulnServer, which is a vulnerable Windows application, and it has a bunch of functions that you would be able to find a vulnerability and exploit them and take advantage of the program that way. I've showcased like the trun function even on this channel. There's a YouTube video for that, which is just a classic stack-based buffer overflow. And there are other things for structured exception handlers, and there are other things for different kinds of bad bytes usage, etc. And there are tons of great resources out there online. Connor McGarr, forgive me if I'm butchering your name, Connor. He has a fantastic blog that showcases a ton of great stuff in this regard. And I actually ended up using it for some things. So read through his stuff. There are plenty of others, and I might be able to list them more if we were to talk offline. But what I'm thinking of is VulnServer. VulnServer works great for giving you the frame of a Windows server to exploit through a socket. If you were to just run that program and then enable DEP, like enable the data execution prevention, then you've added another difficulty or another hurdle for you to jump over, because now your stack-based buffer overflow is going to have to, jump through some hoops and hurdles, trying to find a code cave, or maybe using an egg hunter, or going through the procedure for ROP and writing shellcode to match whatever bad bytes it might be in front of. You can set your own restrictions, but just simply trying and adding those security mitigations like DEP and ASLR, even if it's a simple thing like VulnServer, that can stretch you and that can help you prepare. Honestly, I feel like I just have to say, go do VulnServer, but turn on those security protections and then practice, play with them. What would you consider to be the most difficult course out of the OSCE 3 bundle, and why? So I touched on this earlier when I was talking about OSWE and OSCE. Those are totally different reasons, right? And I feel like I am stronger at web exploitation and analysis than I am at like low-level binary exploitation. So maybe it's just a personal thing. Maybe it's totally subjective. I think now that I was grappling more with OSED for the exploit developer, because it was just a mental bend, like a whirlwind. OSWE was a different challenge because of that needle in the haystack that I was referring to earlier. It might totally be subjective on you, what you feel like you're strong at, what you feel like you're good at, or what you're interested in. But OSED was a tough point for me. The exploit developer was tough for me. And I feel like I had to prepare and pour myself into it, and I didn't feel like I was able to do that enough. But so then I try to cram and try to do it. That's what you got to do. Invest the time, because reverse engineering takes a long time. Figuring out the process of the exploits takes a long time. When I still feel like I could do more and I want to do more, I feel like I have some cognitive dissonance, and maybe that's very visible in how I'm saying this right now. And that I didn't feel like I put in enough time, but my advice is to put in more time. I realize that sounds so stupid, but it's necessary. And I feel like I did enough, but I could do more. And if I were to give the advice to people to get them prepared and get them ready, it's do more, prepare more, invest more time. Yeah. Crappy answer for that one. Sorry, Tobu. What level do you feel people should be at before they begin the course? Is this something that a dedicated student fresh out of college could complete? So my answer to that is, again, yes. If you go through the course, and it will get you set up, but if you put in more time and dedicate and practice and do your homework, you can do it. If you're a student fresh out of college, that shouldn't be a detractor. That should never be a stumbling block in your mind. If you're a student fresh out of college, dude, you've got the world in front of you. You do whatever you want, man. What was the most challenging part of the course or the exam? And what did you enjoy most about the course? Oh, sorry, I skipped Tobu's question. Let me bounce back to it. What was the most challenging part of the course or the exam? The curveballs. The curveball that I suggested. Let me I guess preface that and put that in one way. When I had the exam tasks and the assignment in front of me, you immediately have like your first impression of like, oh, that looks doable, or oh, that looks hard, or oh, I don't know if I could solve that. The first one that I wanted to tackle, I thought, this is going to be the easy one. This is going to be the one, okay, cool, it's comfortable. And I thought, oh, maybe this other one or maybe the other couples, they're going to be harder. They're going to be much more difficult for me to work through. I was wrong. So that first one that I thought, this will be smooth. Maybe I could do this. This is possible. That threw a curveball at me, and the one that I thought would be easier would turn out to be harder, and the one that I thought would be harder was easier than that one that I thought would be easy. That was just kind of a swift kick in the pants, I guess. That was the challenging thing. It was like, oh man, I felt really confident, and now I'm trying to rework this thing in my mind. What did you enjoy most about the course? Exactly that. Those troubleshooting and debugging moments are the things that felt the most fun, because it's like there's a wall in front of me, there's a problem, and I need to solve it. What clever and creative things can I do to get around that? And that's the whole mindset, right, for exploit developing and bypassing these security mitigations like DEP and ASLR. But it's like, oh, can I do that? What clever things can I do with ROP in the registers? What clever things can I do with the shellcode to avoid these bad bytes? What do I need to do for my ASLR leak to be able to find memory addresses that I could still automatically work through? Those were all very cool and very fun. Maybe the most enjoyable thing is knowing that you were struggling and then persevering and achieving past that, I think. Yeah. What was the main thing that kept you running through this course? Was it motivation or drive or something else? Whoa, that's a super good question. The main thing that kept me running. The main thing that kept me running was the deadline. The fact that I scheduled my exam and I was like, I need to do this. And because I knew this is a different angle, so forgive me. The motivation that I wanted to pursue it, the motivation that I wanted, I'm gonna go all over the place for this answer. I'm super sorry. Yes, there was motivation because I wanted to learn more. I wanted to practice it. I wanted to play with it. And it was so cool. You feel like a stinking ninja when you're doing binary exploitation and reverse engineering. That was enjoyable and fun, and I wanted to keep doing more. I wanted to get through the course so I could play, so I could make those neat tools, so I could practice and carve out my arsenal of things that I could do. And then the deadline, the smack in the face that, dude, I need to get good at this before it's showtime. And then here's the interesting perspective that might not be applicable to everyone. In a weird way, it's the content creator influencer portion where it's like, shoot, I've told my friends, the community, some folks, yeah, I'm taking OSED. I've got my test coming up. My test is this weekend. I said it on the OffSec webinar. It's like, oh, people are going to ask me how it went. And what if I failed? And I was like, I'm going to fail. I'm going to fail this test. And it was in my mind. I was replaying what would happen when I had to make a video that said like, yeah, I didn't pass. Because like I could not make a video, sweep it under the rug, or do a blog or article or something, or I could, or I could just kind of come up front in the spotlight and say like, yeah, I missed the mark on this one. And I was thinking maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it'll be, people will think, John, you're not a robot. So that was an element to it, was like, I didn't want to come out to everyone else and be like, tail between my legs. Yeah, I failed. So bummer. and I said like, earlier when I had the mentality, like, it doesn't matter. I'll take it again. I'll hit it harder next time. There's that, but there's also like the bummer, like, dang, I'm sad that I didn't get it. So I struggle with that cognitive dissonance, I guess. Meh. How good is the content from a learning perspective compared to OSEP? It is good. It is very good. I have always said, and I said it in the offensive security webinar, that I really, really like hands-on learning and practical application-based, showcase and demonstration-based learning. What I love about offensive security stuff is that the videos are videos. Like, it's a raw screen capture. It's like a screencast. It's what I do on my channel, because you, as the viewer, get to see everything. You get to see what happens where and how, and what you type in and what you click on. There's nothing that is left up out of your mind because you saw it happen. So I really like that in how offensive security presents their courses and their training material. So how good is the content from the learning perspective? I think it's great. Compared to OSEP, they're both cream of the crop. I think this is actually a hilarious thing. If you look at the book, like the PDF version from the original version of OSCP or the original version of OSCE, if you go way, way back, the Cracking the Perimeter book in PDF was like 100 pages. Maybe I might be getting that wrong, or like 80 pages. I have no idea, but it was a significant amount smaller than what we see for the course PDF in the book for OSEP and OSED. Like, they're like 600 pages, 800 pages, or whatever, but an extreme amount more than what it was back in those older, smaller renditions of these courses. I think that the new things that offensive security has been bringing out have just been stellar, in my opinion. Just my thoughts. What would be the pathway for OSCP certified to prepare for OSEP? Do it. Why did you go with this course, and what was your strategy for doing the certification? Congrats. Thanks, man. Why did you go with this course? I just want to learn stuff, man. I like, people think I might be crazy. Like, I might genuinely be crazy, and I've been talking for hours on this thing. I like training that's hands-on and practical. So certifications, as stupid as I look, like, I'm such a dumbo when I have so many stinking worthless letters strapped to my name. Oh, I took X certification, Y certification, Z certification. It's not for like the street cred or the something to slap on the resume. It's just because it's genuinely presenting a new challenge to me, and it's like showcasing technology and software and hardware and techniques and tradecraft, adversarial work or defensive work that I haven't seen before. It's just exposing me to new things. So even if, like, OSED specifically, I don't do binary exploitation for my day job. I don't do strict hardcore reverse engineering in IDA for what I do for a living. I just want to know more so I can better understand the rest of everything that happens. I don't know. I just feel like it helps me, makes me be a better, more well-rounded cybersecurity dude. I was going to say cybersecurity professional, but we all know that's not true. So what was your strategy for doing the certification? Speed run. I talk a lot about that mentality, that philosophy, and that I'm go guns blazing. It's a cannonball approach to just take one certification after the next. It's just because it keeps me growing. It keeps me learning. It keeps me with it and in it. Maybe that's crazy to some people, and I'm sure it is. And I've found the flaws and the weaknesses myself, but I know that there's a lot that I want to do. So my strategy for doing the certification, crank through the course material, watch every single video, take notes on as much as I can, and then tooling and preparation, everything that I've already showcased in this video. So I think that's it. Yeah, those are all the questions from Discord. I'd be happy to take any other questions. Again, if anyone wants to reach out, don't be a stranger. Hit me up. Discord, Twitter, LinkedIn, here in the YouTube comments, whatever. You can track me down, right? Cyberstalk me. And I got red hair, so it should be pretty easy to find, right? I'm just kidding. All right. Well, hey, this turned into a heck of a lot longer video than I expected it to be. That's totally my fault for just rambling on about the questions. I hope that this was valuable for you. If I'm making a review video for this certification, for this course, for this whole curriculum for offensive security exploit developer, look, this gets my thumbs up. I was really pleased and just so happy that I was able to push through it and persevere personally to solve this, to pass the exam. But I do feel like I learned a lot, and between shell coding and ROP and reverse engineering and ASLR and format string, there's a lot in this course that I wanted to get more familiar with, and I feel like I really did while going through this. So kudos to you, Offensive Security, because I know you're listening in. I know you're still here. Thank you for putting out such a stellar course, and I don't know, letting me try my hand at it, giving the old college try. For anyone listening in that's thinking about going out with certification, do it. Don't hold yourself back from it. It's totally doable. It's totally achievable. If a stupid kiddo like me could do it, I know you can too. So thanks so much for all your support, everyone. That was really sweet to kind of see all the love after I got the good word. But seriously, excellent course. You should try it, study for it, prep, take notes, do all the right things. And I hope that some of my advice here or suggestions might be worthwhile to you, but your mileage may vary, Chat with other folks. I'm not going to be the single source of truth by any means. I hope that this stands as one thing, one snippet of testimonial or thoughts or, I don't know, ideas for OSCE and the EXP 301 course. So thanks so much for watching, everybody. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks for bearing with me, sticking all the way to the end. If you did happen to watch this whole thing, you're the best. If you don't mind doing those YouTube algorithm things, it super helps out the channel. I'd love if you could like the video, maybe leave a comment, maybe subscribe, and maybe hopefully we can get more really cool stuff out and stuff that can send the same value as this if it did send some. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. I love you. I'll see you soon.